Good afternoon, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Removing the Liberal Blindfold for this Monday, the 11th day of February in the year of our Lord 2019. From WND American Minute comes this from folks. The headline, Hitler's Rise to Power, Eerie Echo of Today's Left. Bill Ferrer relates how plan to ethically cleanse Germany led to atrocities and to removing of the liberal blindfold here. Vladimir Lenin, 1870-1924, stated, quote, socialized medicine is a keystone to the establishment of a socialized state, unquote. Nazi is the abbreviation of the National Socialist Workers' Party. And hello, Lynn and Michael. Good to see you here. Its leader was Adolf Hitler, who became Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. Hitler began implementing a plan of universal health care with no regard for conscience. Kind of like the left, and sadly some on the right are pushing today. Hello, Lillian. The New York Times reported October 10, 1933, Nazi plan to kill incurables to end pain. German religious groups oppose move. Ministry of Justice explaining the Nazi aims regarding the General German Penal Code today announced its intentions to authorize physicians to end the sufferings of incurable patients with the interest of true humanity. Death panels, folks, sounds familiar? New York Times continued. Catholic newspaper Germania has hastened to observe the Catholic faith binds the conscience of its followers not to accept this method. In Lutheran circles, too, life is regarded as something that God alone can take. Euthanasia has become a widely discussed word in the Reich. No life still valuable to the state will be wantonly destroyed. Let the left get what they want, and this is what they will go, where they will go. When Germany's economy suffered, expenses had to be cut from the national health care plan, which it will happen now, such as keeping alive handicapped, insane, chronically ill, elderly, and those with dementia. They were considered life unworthy of life. Then criminals, convicts, street bums, beggars, and gypsies considered leeches on society met a similar fate. Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger has been the editor of Birth Control Review, a magazine that published in April of 1933 an article by Ernst Rudin, one of the fathers of racial hygiene. Ernest Rudin advised the Nazi Socialist Workers' Party to prevent hereditary defective genes from being passed on to future generations by people considered to be by the state to be inferior mankind, and that was Untermensch. The National Socialist Workers' Party labeled the Aryan race as Übermensch, supermankind. The etymology of Aryan is Iran. From there, the Indo-Iranian people descended. The National Socialist Workers' Party enacted horrific plans to purge the human gene pool of what they considered inferior races. And this is where it really gets picky, folks. It's what they consider, not what we consider, but what they consider. And that's where the Liberal Party is heading us now. But this resulted in 6 million Jews and millions of others dying in gas chambers and ovens. Nazis and antagonists harvested human body parts of prisoners for scientific research and laboratory experimentation. Sound kind of like Planned Parenthood? U.S. Surgeon General Everett C. Koch stated in 1977, when the first 273,000 German-aged, infirm, and retarded were killed in gas chambers, there was no outcry from that medical profession, and that was not far from there to Auschwitz. German journalist Malcolm Muggeridge explained, we have, for those who have eyes to see, an abject lesson in what the quest for quality of life without reference to sanctity of life can involve. The origins of the Holocaust lay not in the Nazi terrorism, but in Germany's acceptance of euthanasia and mercy killings as humane and estimable. Suddenly, there was a crisis. Germany's Capitol building, the Reichstag, was set on fire in 1933. Hello, Claudia. Under suspicious conditions in which some historians claim Hitler supporters were implicated. Hitler immediately declared a national emergency and suspended basic rights. He quickly arrested his political opponents and had them shot without a trial. That's coming. Hitler rose to power with the help of violent homosexual activists called brown shirts, who organized boycotts of Jewish businesses and stormed in and disrupted meetings of opposing parties. Hitler forced old traditional military generals to retire, thus purging his administration of any still retaining a remnant of archaic Judeo-Christian values who might resist him. Hello, Lynn. Nazi Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels confided in Goebbels' diary in 1939 through 41 that in reality, Hitler hates Christianity because it has crippled all that is noble in humanity. Hitler swayed the public with mesmerizing speeches. Nazis confiscated weapons. The SA Oberfuhrer warned of the ordinance by the Provisional Bavarian Minister of the Interior. The deadline set for the surrender of weapons will expire on March 31st, 1933. I therefore request the immediate surrender of all arms. Whoever does not belong to one of these named units, the SA, SS, and Stahlhelm, and then keeps his weapons without authorization or even hides it, must be viewed as an enemy of the national government and will be held responsible without hesitation and with the utmost severity. Now, that meant death and confiscation of the weapon for the Nazi party, folks. Hello, Claudia. Heinrich Himmler, head of the Nazi SS Protection Squadron, stated, Germans who wish to use firearms should join the SS or the SA. Ordinary citizens don't need guns, as their having guns doesn't serve the state. Sound familiar, folks? Disarming the civilian population was a necessary step in state control, as Vladimir Lenin explained. One man with a gun can control 100 without one. When a suspected homosexual youth shot a Nazi diplomat in Paris, it was used as an excuse to confiscate all firearms from Jews. German newspapers printed November 10, 1938, Jews forbidden to possess weapons by order of SS Reichsfuhrer Himmler in Munich. Persons who, according to the Nuremberg law, are regarded as Jews are forbidden to possess any weapon. Violators will be condemned to a concentration camp and imprisoned for a period of up to 20 years. Sound familiar? The federal government, if they give a weapons ban on any certain type of person, can then modify that law to include whoever they want, and they will. The New York Times, November 9, 1938, reported the Berlin police announced that the entire Jewish population of Berlin had been disarmed with the confiscation of 2,569 hand weapons, 1,702 firearms, and 20,000 rounds of ammunition. Any Jews still found in possession of weapons without valid licenses are threatened with the severest punishment, and that was death, in other words. Of the Waffengeist Nazi weapons law, March 18, 1938, Hitler stated at a dinner talk, April 11, 1942, Hitler's Table Talk, 1941 through 44, his private conversations, second edition, 1973, page 465 through 6, 425 through 6, translated by Norman Cameron and R.H. Stevens. The most foolish mistake we could possibly make would be to allow the subject races to possess arms. History shows that all conquerors who have allowed their subject races to carry arms have prepared their own downfall by doing so. So let's not have any native militia or native police. German troops alone will bear the sole responsibility for the maintenance of law and order. Now, does that sound familiar? Where they're telling us that the police are the only ones who need to have weapons? Franklin Delano Roosevelt stated of Hitler, December 15, 1941, government to him is not a servant of the people, but their absolute master and the dictator of their every act. The rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which seemed to the founders of the Republic inalienable, were to Hitler and his fellows empty words. FDR continued, Hitler's advanced that the individual human being has no rights whatsoever in himself, no right to a soul of his own, or a mind of his own, or a tongue of his own, or a trade of his own, or even to live where he pleases, or to marry the woman he loves. That his only duty is the duty of obedience, not to his God, not to his conscience, but to Adolf Hitler. His only value is his value, not as man, but as a unit of the Nazi state. That was what FDR said about Hitler. FDR stated in his State of the Union address, January 6, 1942, the world is too small for both Hitler and God. Nazis have announced their plan for enforcing their pagan religion all over the world, by which the Holy Bible and the Cross of Mercy should be displaced by Mein Kampf and the swastika. Today, that sounds like Islam, which says all of the religions are inferior and not right and must be gotten rid of in favor of Islam. Churchill, From War to War, Second World War, Volume 1, Chapter 4, page 50, described Hitler's Mein Kampf as the new Quran of faith and war, turgid, verbose, shapeless, but pregnant with its message. Hitler was initially going to allow Jews to be deported to Palestine, but the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Mohammed Amin al-Husseini, who met with Hitler, also held anti-Jewish views. Beginning in 1931, al-Husseini attempted to follow Hitler's example by expelling Jews from Palestine, as the Muslim Brotherhood would also do in Egypt. Mufti al-Husseini recruited 30,000 Bosnian Muslims to join Hitler's Waffen-SS. Hitler gave al-Husseini financial assistance and then asylum in 1941 with the honorary rank of SS Major General. During the final battle in Berlin in April of 1945, as Allied forces closed in on Hitler's bunker, they confronted 100 Muslims of the Mufti's Arab Legion, making their last suicidal stand. Hitler's view was the Nazis had the right solution but the wrong religion, stating, had Charles Martel not been victorious at Poitiers in 732 AD, then we should in all probability have been converted to Mohammedanism, that cult which glorifies the heroism which opens up the seventh heaven to the bold warrior alone, and the Germanic races would have conquered the world. Hitler stated of the Nazis, people of Islam will always be closer to us than, for example, France. According to Albert Speer, the Third Reich's Minister of Armaments and War Production, Hitler stated in private, the Mohammedan religion, too, would have been much more compatible to us than Christianity with its meekness and flabbiness. Though early in his career, Hitler pretended to be sympathetic to Christianity in order to get elected. Once he got in power, he revealed his Nazified social Darwinism and open hostility toward Christianity. And that's the same thing that the Democrats do, folks. They go a little bit more centrist so that we don't think that they're horrible, and then when they get into office, they push their leftist agenda. A lot of this really sounds like the left of today, doesn't it? Are we allowing the left to head us back down that horrible road again? That history? Because mark my words here, folks, that is the direction the liberal left is leaning. And leaning towards those horrible years is nothing but the beginning of it. Thank you, Lynn, Michael, Lillian, and Claudia for being here. We are here to push the facts that the liberal lying lamestream media leaves out. Facts that change the story from what is right to what the left wants, which is never right anymore. Truth, justice, and the American way are the continuing casualties in everything that the left stands for. And I hope that the American people learn that. God bless America. God bless our troops. And as always, we will not be ruled. Have a safe and blessed day.